Hey, so today I wanted to do just kind of mini tips and tricks that I'm seeing with each of your projects that were submitted last night. Go over some things that I think will be helpful for the final and see what we can find in everyone's projects. So we'll start with this one here. I can see a few things off the bat. You're modeling with several different shapes, which sometimes is necessary and sometimes is not. I know that you wanted to create more of a face look, and I think the main thing here is going to be with scale. You know, looking at it from here, I can still see if you wanted this to be a nose and some eyes, but I would make your actual headphone section bigger. You know, scaling these up, we get the kind of more of an eyeball feel. Now, I don't know how big the actual headphones are in comparison to the stand. The only thing that I could find was some imagery like this. So I don't know what kind of stand you're dealing with, but I think the whole scale of the headphones can be increased, and then the stand can kind of be more of a decrease. Now for me, I think this looks very much like a face, how they're kind of bent in with the white here and the black there. So I think those are on the outside. Again, I'm sorry, I don't have these headphones. I've definitely seen them. But yeah, so this is the outside. And the inside's here. So we can take a look at this. Now, you could go through and go into face mode and select different rings of your faces. Oops. Like so. And then we could give those a different texture. So assign new material, whatever you wanted it to be, Blinn, Lambert, but then we could make it white. Oh, I'm sorry, it was black. Go back over into that texture. Now see, you've got a lot of tabs here. Remember, those are nodes. So we could go to Edit, Delete by Type, History. Make sure you're in Object mode. There we go. And then we can make these black. Then you can go through. I'm holding Shift, clicking on one face, and then double clicking the next. And that gives me the ring. And then we can assign a new material, Blinn or Lambert, whatever you're thinking, white, and then we could add, you know, if you wanted it to be gray, or you could go back to assign existing material, Lambert 2. Okay, so we're already creating more of an eyeball look that way. And I think, you know, the cat ears could also be scaled up. You could add some depth, you know, if you go into vertex mode, if you want this to be pushed in even further, you can have this one be pulled out to give it more of a cat-like look. Now looking at this object as a whole, I'm just going to slide it out. If you ever see that your pivot, and this is your pivot point, is not by your object, you can go to Modify, Center Pivot. Then it'll pop back so you don't have to deal with having to navigate far around. Actually, this is working well. All right, so now for the stand. I'm just going to hide, oops, not hide that. I'm going to move it out of the way temporarily so that we can see what's going on here. What I would do instead of inserting another object is to create an edge loop and then extrude. So let's see, we can go to Mesh and Separate so I can see all your pieces here. Now we had some discussion or question about combining, grouping, all of that. I will go over that before this video is done. but I'm going to move this over so I can use it as a scale reference. But what I'm going to want to do is go in here and do insert edge loop, and I'll insert one, insert the bottom, and then I can just go into face mode, whichever faces you wanted this part to come out from. And I'll just show my modeling toolkit and do an extrude. Now we don't need them to come out. You can always adjust however thick you need be. Look at it from different angles. Then I always go into vertex mode, grab all of the vertices on the bottom. You can see they're kind of all over. If we use scale, we can straighten them out to be in the same line. Maybe you want those to be thinner, then you just need to lower the edge loop that I actually extruded from. So that would be something to do beforehand, but just in case you do it and you don't like it, you can always change it that way. Same thing would go for these bottom pieces. We never want to just slap on different shapes and have them intersect. You're getting more vertice information than you need, because technically inside this cube we've got all of these vertices that aren't doing anything. We don't need them. Other than that, your polygons are clean and well organized. You've got like pretty much a solid edge flow all the way around, so make sure you're keeping up with that. All right, let's take a look at the next one. All right, with this one I think we have a really nice start. I like how you have the drawer open. That gives us a little bit extra. Now you could put something in the drawer, whether it's a plane that you just texture to look like clothes or messy clothes, and I still think we could use a little bit more detail. You may not want to have, you know, the facial knobs, but you could have a hole maybe where the knobs used to be, or maybe some sort of a different representation to how we would pull open these drawers. Your reference image also had stickers. And I see that you kind of went with a dent in here. Now, sometimes it's hard to deal with, let me just turn this off so we can see a little bit more, adjusting polygons when you don't need to. You know, you had a really nice render here. Your lighting looks nice, you've got some crisp shadows. This even comes off as a nice scratch. But what you can do, just another option so you're not actually dealing with your polygons, is create it in Photoshop and put it on as a texture. You could go as simply as just to do one drawer at a time. You can do all of them. You can do the entire dresser. I know we talked about unwrapping and your UV snapshots, but it's going to be basically the same thing. So I'm going to go down here, and again, you could do all of these sections. You can do just the drawer, but I'm just going to do these front faces. So just these two. UV. I can do a planar map, make sure it's facing the right way, we've got the right size. Then I can go to UV, UV editor. Looks like we've got some other information selected here. Just for the sake of what I want to show you, I'm going to move all of these out of the way and then just grab the drawers. But point being, you could just take these, save out your UV snapshot, go to Image, UV snapshot, save that out, and then paint in the details that you want. You could also bring your entire dresser into Photoshop to add a wooden texture to it. Other than that, your object is looking clear, crisp. You probably do not need this cross at the top unless you wanted to do something with it. just hit Control Delete when you delete them to make sure the vertices go with it. So really in this project it's just pushing the idea a little bit further. Alright, nice work. Alright, now on to this one. I really love the angle that you've created here to see it. I would probably turn up the resolution here so that you could have a nice portfolio piece. Your preview looks fine, but I would start, try to have a larger resolution, and then you can always bring it down. And again, to change that, we just go into our settings here and scroll down. So you could do 1920, 1080, and give a nice 300 resolution. Doesn't change very much what you're seeing, but it will in your render. Nice work actually locking down your shot, and he named it Shot for the camera. Very successful. So now taking a closer look at this, I really like how you created this jug. Now if we go into hard surface mode, you can see that some of the polygons are overlapping, but in this case that's completely fine. That's the whole point of it. They're supposed to be going through each other, and you're creating a really nice looking face. All of your milk jugs are very clean. I mean, I know they're duplicates, but changing the texture really goes a long way. You've got the caps with the details. You can really feel the texture on them. I don't know if you guys can easily see that or not, but the ridges. I would like to see you create, this from maybe one piece or even just two for the cap. Then you also have a bunch of edge loops here in the fridge, and I'm not certain as to why. I know you have each of these as kind of its own shelf, so just make sure that's actually something that you need. Remove it if possible. Same thing goes for the door. I would like to see you extrude these shelves from the door. It's just going to help. I mean, obviously we're not rigging, but getting used to modeling from one primitive will help you in the long run. Your lighting is very successful. Again, the layout, looking at it, everything looks pretty clean. I'm glad you got that fridge door detail in it and the surrounding milk jugs to really show off the face. So nice work. Alright, and last but not least, we have this project. I think this one is very successful from the angle to the lighting. I love the little details, around the faucet here, how we've got chrome that matches the candle suit. I think you did a little post to add some flames. Please let me know what you did for that, but it looks clean. I like having some color on the can to make it pop so we can actually see it. Maybe showing off the top if you've got a nice little where you push to release. Other than that, looking at the file, I think the face is very, very successful. You've got, some dents in the wax. Now this looks like a very high poly model, but as this person was modeling, submitted several different files to show how this all came along. So I really like the organic nature here versus, the metal suit. It's still an organic feel, but made of a harsh material. I like your ball and socket joints that you have for the arms, and I think the position of the character really sells what they're doing. You have all this detail over here. This is what I was talking about in your still, so you might want to show that off. But other than that, having the wax strip, you could have it maybe dripping on the metal to get a contrast in texture and get that nice reflection. But everything else is working really, really nicely. You paid attention to story and what you wanted to tell, how this character was going to move, what his goals were. I knew you had a second character that we would like to do, but again, this class isn't over. The assignment is, but you could still do it throughout this class or through the next couple of terms. I rendered just a small section, that's why this is so low down, but just so you can see all of the reflections, the lighting, the detail that we have going on here. It really is going to make a difference and sell your story when you can get those types of textures. Okay, so be thinking about that as you're moving into your final project. Think about what kind of lights you want to use, what type of textures you want to use. Now, just because you're using textures doesn't mean that they have to be realistic, but thinking about, going for a style or what type of realism can you create. All right, so great work. So I had a question about combining versus grouping, parenting, all of that. So I wanted to take a closer look. Let's make these a little bit bigger. Mainly, when you're dealing with geometry, if you're going to do a bridge or, some sort of tool like that, you need to combine them. Whether you're using combine or group, you're not removing any excess polygons, you're just pushing them kind of together. So however far apart these are, when I do a mesh combine, they're now one and they remain that far away. No matter which one I click on, they're attached. I can go into vertex mode. I can select vertices from both shapes together to adjust. So it's technically like they are one object. We undo that. Now, if we group them, what happens is it's very important to look at your outliner. So here in my outliner, I can still select these shapes separately, or I can click on the group to move them together. Now with some Edible Poly tools, it won't let you to use it with a group, but grouping is a nice way to kind of combine them but let them be separate and on their own. I should also mention, if you do a mesh combine, the texture of the first one you click on is going to overtake the second one, whereas if you group, they remain their own identity. There is one other option, and that is parenting. So let's say I want the sphere to move the cube, but I want the cube to be able to do its own thing. Or let me reverse that. Let's pretend this is some sort of a car. I want to use the cube to move the car along, but I want to be able to rotate the wheels independently. So I can click on the sphere in my outliner, middle mouse click and drag it onto the cube. Now you can see that when I click on the cube is the parent. It moves both of them. Kind of imagine again if you are taking a little kid across the street and you hold the little kid's hand. When it's safe to cross, you start pulling them across the street. They can walk with you, but they're still free to do their own thing, wave back to the other kids, etc. Well, that still works here because our child is the sphere. I can still rotate this separately, but if I rotate from the cube, it rotates with the cube. All right, so those are your kind of 3 different grouping options.